Welcome to Fantasy Football Aces. It's your boy William Wolf. I'm back, and today we're getting an episode about overvalued players in the 2023 Fantasy Football Draft. I'm going to run through these guys by position, and we're going to start off with the quarterbacks. Number one quarterback, overvalued in 2023 Fantasy Football Draft, is Tua Tagovailoa from the Miami Dolphins. Now, I know this guy is going later in drafts, but I strongly advised you in a previous episode to go with the 5 quarterbacks I think you should only draft in fantasy football. And that is one of the reasons, just to start out, that this guy falls in this category. You have Tyreek Hill and you have Waddle as your receivers. Most fantasy football managers are going to try to save themselves and get a guy late like Tua because of the weapons that he has around him. I think it's been proven over last year that he will not stay healthy. He's quite literally one minor hit away from being out with concussion, and I'd say one major hit away from being out for his career. I think Tua possibly could be in his last year in the NFL, depending on what happens. I don't really predict them being able to protect. Their offensive line is subpar at best, and I believe that he is going to take some hits. I think that if you're going to spend a late round pick on a quarterback, you should be targeting someone like Trevor Lawrence in the later to mid rounds, opposed to trying to fall back on one of these guys super late, or even taking a chance on Richardson from the Colts over a guy like Tua. I know that sounds crazy, but at least Richardson runs. I think that if you invest in your quarterback late with Tua, you're going to regret it because he's going to get hurt and you're going to be scrambling. The second quarterback on my list is Aaron Rodgers. Now, for similar reasons, I'd say stay away from this guy and try to draft quarterbacks early and get of players of value at receiver and running backs later. And this applies to Aaron Rodgers as well. He has Garrett Wilson. He's going to be targeting him quite a bit. I think Garrett Wilson is a great fantasy football option this year. I would spend as much money as you can on him in salary. I would allocate a high snake draft pick on Garrett Wilson. But that doesn't translate into Aaron Rodgers having a productive fantasy football year. He doesn't run. He's a kind of player that they have one of the best defenses in the NFL. He's going to be there to manage the game, make sure they don't screw it up. The defense is going to carry that ball club. He's going to be averaging between 200 and 300 yards thrown a game and 2 touchdowns max. He'll have a couple big games outside of that, but you're talking about probably 4 to 5 games that he goes ballistic, and you're just going to be at a soft floor of like 16 points, high ceiling of 26. You're going to be in that range, and so often than not, they're going to get a defensive battle with the Jets, and he's just going to be playing it smart and making sure that they don't make mistakes. That's what a great quarterback does. That's what Peyton Manning did at the end of his career when he won a Super Bowl with Denver. He had some big years in Denver, Peyton Manning did, but I think those years are behind Aaron Rodgers. I don't believe that you should be spending a draft pick on Aaron. I wouldn't even have him on my list at all. The last quarterback I believe is overvalued this year is Deshaun Watson. Now, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about this particular player. I just believe that, the years off from the NFL have really hurt him. I think that this offensive line for Cleveland is second to none. Nick Chubb is going to be balling for him. He has some good weapons in Cooper and Elijah Moore, but I just don't believe Deshaun Watson is going to be able to get back to the level that most people think he can. You can spend a late round pick on Deshaun Watson, but I still strongly advise going against drafting him and going more so for running backs and receivers of late value and investing a high draft pick in a good quarterback. That's more so of what my focus is on the QBs, because I realize that none of these guys are that high on ADP. They're more late round picks. We'll get into some guys here now at the running back position that are more so something that you've tuned in for, and that is Jonathan Taylor. That's my first running back on my list. Now, Jonathan Taylor, as I'm recording right now, has a 4-game pup on the 4-game pup list for Indianapolis. I was making this video and thought before he even reserved this 4-game pup list. I'm calling it a suspension, but I guess it's a fake injury. I just think that that's a really sticky situation there. The GM doesn't want to move him because he doesn't feel like he's getting enough value back. And Jonathan doesn't want to play because he's not getting the money. And he does. On top of that, he wants to play for a contender, which he believes the Colts are not that. I'm not sure if Jonathan's going to even play another down this year. I would think after this 4-game pup list that they somehow move him for something, maybe a later round pick. They just accept that you're not going to get what they think they're going to get for him. But as far as fantasy football is concerned, he is way overvalued. You got a 4-game pup list now. He should be moving way down the ADPs. On top of that, he's just a risk in general. You just don't know what you're going to get out of him this year. And I believe you should stay away unless you're getting him for a 5th round pick or later. My second guy on my list is Josh Jacobs. Now, Josh Jacobs was an absolute superstar last year, had over 2,000 yards total in receiving and rushing, tons of touchdowns. He was fantastic. And that is the reason why I believe that he is overvalued this year. He's coming back into camp late, didn't quite get the money he wanted, was holding out. He's there now. He's going to start week 1. But you got Jimmy Garoppolo in town. I believe that this team is, their roster is turning over. They just really haven't been able to figure that out. Derek Carr leaving. I think Jimmy G is a worse version of Derek Carr, to be completely honest. Jimmy G's the kind of quarterback that he wants to be in a system with a fantastic defense like the 49ers had, where with all those weapons, and he could just sit back and essentially run the scheme and manage the game, which was based off the play action. Over in LA, he's going to be more relied upon to actually sling the ball around. The offensive line is mediocre. I think that Josh Jacobs is in a situation where he's going to regress inevitably, and you're paying a high ticket price for him because of how great of a year he had last year. Now, I believe Josh Jacobs is somewhere in between his value going into 2022 and his value now going into 2023. I believe he's a 3rd or 4th round pick. I think he'll fall into that kind of category next year after this year. But for this year, as a 2nd round pick, he's overvalued. I think you can find a better receiver in that round, or a different 3-down horseback. I still like Josh Jacobs. I just believe he's a little overvalued. Next up on my running back list is Bijan Robinson. Now, I've gotten a ton of slack about Bijan, but here's the thing, guys. Bijan is going to be in a timeshare in Atlanta. I don't care how many people comment in my comment section or try to trash talk me into them knowing they think they knowing more about football than I do, but it's just not the case. A rookie coming into the NFL as a running back is not trusted on 3rd down to block. He's not going to be trusted with the scheme, with the blocking scheme, with the playbook, all these different things on 3rd down. The running back blocks primarily on 3rd down, especially 3rd and long. So if you're going to take away that down entirely, I believe he'll only be in on 20 to 30% of 3rd downs. You're talking about a guy who's going to run 2 series on and 1 series off with Algier and a healthy Cordell Patterson. You're talking about a guy who is going to be at a 60% snap share, I'd say, at the most. And that's not a kind of player that you're going to invest a top 5 pick in. It's just absurd that he's ranked so high. The hype is real. I believe that he is an amazing talent. Coming out of Texas, he looks like one of those kind of running backs that changes the franchise. But does it get any better than Saquon Barkley? I don't think so. And he's coming into a situation that there's not a great quarterback to take pressure off him. As a matter of fact, it's a young Ritter who we have no idea what's going to happen with him. I just think that Arthur Smith is going to really spread those carries around. I think you're going to see some huge games from Bijan. I believe he could still be an RB1, a top 12 running back. but I think it's a bit of an ask to be drafting him in the top 5. He should move down. Now let's move on to the receivers position. And the first receiver on my list is Terry McLaurin for the Washington football team, the Washington Commanders. You know the ball club I'm referring to. Now, Sam Howell is their quarterback. I know there's a little bit of hype. Depending on which expert you talk to, they believe that, he's coming into a situation with Dotson, McLaurin, a good defense, that he could possibly make some noise. But I think Terry regresses this year. I believe he's a little bit overvalued. I think that you should stay away from that Commanders situation entirely. I think that it's a wait-and-see kind of approach with that offense. You want to see what Sam Howell does. I don't think you want to invest in that team, the players on that team, that offense, until you get the chance to see what they can do. In the areas that McLaurin, Dotson, Robinson, and Antonio Gibson are being drafted, I believe in those areas you can find other guys on better offenses on better teams that you know for sure you're going to get more out of. There's no doubt McLaurin and Dotson have a lot of talent, but I'd say they're a little overvalued this year. I'd stay away. Second guy on my list is Christian Watson. Now, the thing about Christian Watson is he's been just stamped as certified at this point as the number 1 receiver, stamped and certified as an immaculate talent. And I just can't stop remembering that first week when he dropped a 70-yard bomb from Aaron Rodgers to start off his career. I don't believe this guy should be certified of anything yet. I think that in his second year, he still has a ton to prove. He had a really good stretch last year of 4 or 5 games that he went completely ballistic. But I think that was a situation that was a perfect storm for him to have that kind of run. I believe Aaron Rodgers was just searching for somebody that he can get the ball to. He found something to Christian, and I believe Aaron Rodgers can make anybody look good. I believe that he made Devontae Adams into who he was. I believe that he's going to do the same thing with Garrett Wilson. These guys are obviously immaculate talents, but Aaron is able to elevate them to levels they would never be able to reach without him. I think with Christian, with Aaron Rodgers gone and Jordan Love taking over, you're going to see some regression from Christian Watson. You're going to actually see an offense that you're not really sure who the number 1 receiver it is. I said Jaden Reed, the kid they got in the second round, could really actually make a run for that position. I think it's wide open between him, Dobbs, and Jaden, speaking of Christian, on who can actually be the go-to guy for Jordan Love. We don't know who he's going to favor in that offense. And as I said, Christian is in a second year. He still has a lot to prove. He's way overvalued. I'd stay away from that team, that offense in general. Last on my list is George Pickens. I just would stay away from Pittsburgh's offense in general. Not a fan of Kenny Pickett. I just don't think he's got it. I believe that Najee Harris is extremely overrated. I would actually rather have Warren than him. I think that he's going to lose about half of his carries this year to Warren. I think that Pittsburgh offense is just on my no draft list. I think Pickens is a guy that you can get somebody else in the same position. He's overvalued. Stay away. That's the bottom line. Last but not least on my list is at the tight end position, and I feel pretty passionate about this one, and that's TJ Hockenson. Now, if there's anything to be said about the tight end position, unless your name is Travis Kelce, you cannot totally be trusted. Mark Andrews possibly gets on that short list, but even him, he's disappointed last year. He's been injured. He has to rely on a guy named Lamar Jackson, who's not the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. I just believe that Travis Kelce is the only true bet at the tight end position. And now TJ Hockenson has somehow worked his way into a conversation that he is, elite tier 2, third round kind of guy. I think that's absolutely stupid if you're investing into a tight end not named Travis Kelce in the first couple rounds. I can see possibly reaching for Andrews in the 3rd or 4th round, just based on potential and the fact that he did have a 1,200 yard receiving year a couple years ago as the tight end 1. But TJ Hockenson, you're looking at a team in Minnesota that is going to regress. Their offensive line is mediocre. Dalvin Cook is out the door. Defenses are going to be way more soft in the box. They're going to be covering up on Justin Jefferson. that means Addison and Hockenson can have more opportunity, right? But that's if he can get them the ball. I believe that, you know, Kirk Cousins is a very mediocre to bad quarterback. I've never been a believer. I do not like that. And I just think that you're going to make a mistake if you reach for TJ Hockenson this early. I'm not saying he can't be a viable tight end that you want to play. All I'm saying is that he is overrated. He's ranked too high. Stay away. That will do it for my most overrated, overvalued players into 2023 fantasy football draft. I hope that you listen to me. I hope that you're catching this video before your draft so you haven't already made this mistake. I got receipts here. I got receipts on YouTube, Fantasy Football Aces, all day that are going to be able to be proven wrong or right, so we can go back and reflect on this, and you can start to see how sharp I am when it comes to this fantasy football game. But subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your homies. Let's run this thing up in 2023. Fantasy Football Aces, a new perspective. Let's get it, y'all. Peace out.